All right, you all. So welcome to Menopause March Madness. I am your girl, Carlika Katrina Basnight-Menendez. Yes, all of that. And we're bringing the hottest episode, right? Another conversation that's hot off the press. And you all, she is all the way in Israel. Did you hear that? All the way in Israel. And so we're excited to have Miss Jacquline Rose with us on this day. And so I'm super excited about another conversation about menopause. So look, you all, you can pause, but you cannot quit. And I am a living testament, right? A walking billboard that even with whatever symptoms I have, right? Or have had, and sometimes occasionally still have, and my own personal experience of being thrown into menopause at the age of 30. Right. And so a lot of people are like, oh my God, hot flash, you're too young. Thank you. I know I look young. I appreciate those compliments. Right. However, at 30 years old, I was thrown into menopause due to having a total hysterectomy. And so that may not be your story. That may not be your journey. And menopause is not a one size fits all. And so that's why we like to bring a range of people from all over the world to share their experience, to share their expertise. And look, they may even have a resource or a source of something that you're like, you know what, I need that in my life. And so welcome, Miss Jacqueline. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Carlika, for having me. I am super excited about the conversation we're about to have.
Thank you. So just tell everyone a little bit about yourself, what you do, where you're from, and all those things.
Okay, so as you can hear from my accent, I'm originally from London, England. And as you said, I now live in Israel. I'm a menopause educator and coach, a hormonal health specialist. I'm also trained in yoga for women's health, functional blood work analysis, a whole bunch of things that I sort of bring together this integrative functional approach to supporting women on their menopause journey. And really, for me, hormones is the starting place. And that means understanding what is going on with our hormones during this perimenopause, menopause stage of life. Also, what is sort of how our hormonal systems are meant to work in our 20s and our 30s, how very much we arrive often at perimenopause already hormonally depleted. Our hormones are already out of balance. And then how can we really support ourselves with these symptom management, with, embracing the stage of life, to really understand how we can be proactive to supporting ourselves so that we don't. I really believe that this stage of life, whatever perimenopause and menopause hits, whether it's early onset menopause or at its right time, it does not need to be a time of struggle, suffering, confusion, and frustration. Those things are not prerequisites for managing and navigating your menopause journey. So with the hormonal information, with understanding how you can get proactive in your own health and wellness journey, I really believe that women can embrace this stage of life and navigate it with ease, joy, and confidence without all this negativity and baggage and all those sort of negative assumptions that we associate with menopause.
Oh, I love that, Jacqueline, because that's my approach to it right now. Early on, yes, I was aggravated. Early on, I was frustrated. And I felt that I was more frustrated because of the lack of information. Because how could I make a sound decision? How could I even have a conversation without knowing, right? The two pamphlets that I left with from the doctor's office, you all, they was not going to solve any problems, okay? They did not provide enough information for me to make sound decisions and to embrace this transition. So I love that you said what you said. We want to educate, but more so too, we want to empower, right? So unless I'm doing content, clearly you will never see a picture of me. Look, unless it's real, okay? That I'm really feeling sad, or I'm feeling, because all of the pictures, and you all can Google this for yourself, all the pictures that I used to see on the internet, no one looked like me. Everyone was old. Everyone was wrinkled, and everyone looked depressed. Now, we're not saying that, there's not an increase in depression with some women.
Yeah.
However, there's help. And so I do believe that even before I had the hysterectomy. My hormones, like you said, they were already over the place because I was dealing with endometriosis. So they was putting me on birth
Yeah.
control and all of these things
Yes.
that alters hormones.
Your hormones. Yeah. It's so interesting. And again, I want to relate it to the menopause conversation, but so many women will take, will be put on the oral contraceptive pill and see it as a very safe option, for a whole bunch of reasons, whether it's for the contraceptive purposes, whether it's for cycle regulation, whether it's for treatment of PCOS or endometriosis. And they'll take that, doctors are happily, willingly to give it out like candy. And then it comes to perimenopause and menopause. And all of a sudden there is an HRT, a hormone replacement conversation. And people are like, oh no, we can't go for hormone replacement because that's dangerous and that's cancer inducing. But for how many years have they been taking synthetic hormones with their oral contraceptive pill without even batting an eyelid? So I don't know if you want to get into the whole hormone replacement conversation.
Absolutely, because I remember the conversation, once again, that I didn't have enough information to make a sound decision to even get on any hormones. So I've never been on anything, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm more of a holistic approach person, right? So I'm not telling you all, let me put this disclaimer out here. We're not telling you what to do, how to do it. These are suggestions. Please seek your medical professional team, right?
Agreed.
Do your own work, do your own research as well, because what I found out, this is the thing. Even when I go to the doctor, I'm only in there, an hour, and that's about 40 minutes in the waiting area and 15 minutes. Right?
Yeah, when you said an hour, I was thinking you're an hour with your doctor. You've got a very special relationship.
No, not at all. That's 45 minutes in the waiting area and then about 15 minutes, give or take, in their office. But I'm with me 24/7. So I get to determine, I know how I'm sleeping. I know what's going on if I'm paying attention. So even back to the HRT, back then, all I heard during the conversation as someone who was overcoming anorexia, the doctor just kept repeatedly saying, you're going to gain weight. You're going to gain weight. Y'all, I felt like it was something daunting and haunting me with those words. You're going to gain weight. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't want that. I'm still in my overcoming stages of anorexia and different things. Like, why would I want to gain weight? Like, I can't get skinny enough. But I do believe that there's just a lack of education. Okay, the sun is really
okay. No, you've got God's light shining on you. Your face is glowing.
So more people, more women are looking for holistic remedies as well. But let's talk about HRT some, because if that is an option for someone, right, I feel that they need to know the information. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to unpack a couple of the things you said, because there's a lot that you said and I want to sort of relate to it all. So I'm 100% with you that we can, as women, totally manage this holistically by understanding how to navigate our hormonal imbalance and support hormonal health naturally. There are plenty of things that we can do as women. If you have the information and if you work with people like me or people like yourself or other, menopause coaches who really understand how to support your hormones in an integrative, holistic, natural, functional way, whatever word you want to attach to it. It is possible. My clients achieve that. And you do not, if you don't want to, you do not have to go down the hormone replacement therapy route. I will agree with you also. I am not pro or anti HRT. I am, however, very pro women being educated and informed, so that when you go to the doctor, you are able to have an informed conversation with your healthcare practitioner who probably doesn't know all the details about the pros and cons, the risks or the benefits of HRT, because they are probably still in that mindset of the 2002 Women's Health Initiative report, where HRT equals high risk of cancer, and they have not been updated that research is being debunked, that there are long-term health benefits for women of having estrogen. So you as a woman, and I love what you said, you are only 10 or 15 minutes with your doctor, but you're 24/7 with yourself. And so for you to be able to be proactive in your health journey, which is what I really am passionate about, you need to be educated and informed. So again, not pro, not anti, make your own informed decisions, ask the questions to the doctor. It is very difficult to challenge your doctor. If your doctor will turn around and say, no, I don't really support HRT, often they're saying, I don't actually know enough about it. There are doctors who are more educated. Go find them, go seek them out. There are doctors who are menopause informed, HRT informed, symptom treatment informed. You do need to look for them, but they do exist now more and more. But the only thing I do want to say,
this question,
yes,
because a lot of times what we're finding, people don't know what questions to ask.
Exactly. So I agree with you. When it comes specifically to HRT, the questions you want to be asking is, what hormonal combination do I want? It may not, doctors may just give you the estrogen patch, but maybe you need testosterone. You are also going to need progesterone if you still have a uterus. If you don't have a uterus, estrogen is fine. But if you have a uterus, you need estrogen and progesterone. But testosterone is the unsung hero of menopausal support. So what hormones, what dosage, in what combination, what application? Are you taking a pill? Do you have a patch? Do you need cream or a gel? There are lots and lots of alternatives and choices. It is not, as you said, it is not a one size fits all. I think the overarching umbrella statement that I want women to know about menopause is that it is not a one size fits all in any of the categories or any of the discussion topics. It's not a one size fits all in symptoms. It's not a one size fits all in treatment. It's not a one size fits all in when you get it or how you get it. Demographic, ethnicity, geographical location, socioeconomic, it all impacts how your menopause experience will show up for you. And the narrative that we are being sold is, it is bad, it is suffering, it is struggling, you're going to get hit with anxiety, depression, hot flashes, insomnia, weight gain, vaginal dryness, all this list of things that you're going to be hit with. And you know what? It's not inevitable. I am blessed to be a 49-year-old woman, definitely in perimenopause, but I'm not experiencing very many of the symptoms that you would expect a 49-year-old to be experiencing, because I'm, I'm walking the walk of the advice.
And I feel as though even whatever symptoms someone may have, there's a solution for your symptom.
Yeah.
And I think
I also want to make sure, and I want to state this, I don't want to belittle any woman's experience if she is struggling with symptoms. Right. Symptoms are real, and women really do struggle with it. But I want every woman to know it doesn't have to be that way.
Right. I absolutely agree with you. And we're on the same page, because we don't want anyone listening to this to feel like, oh, well, they're women and they just know. What we're saying is there's a solution. And I do believe a greater part of that too is our perspective, right? How were we introduced to menopause? It would be no different of how someone was introduced to sex, right? Or how someone was introduced to relationships. Depending on your experience, whether that was a learned behavior, or if you were molested or if you were raped and all of these different things, your perception of a gender, or your perception of sex, your perception of love, right? It may be totally different until you heal, until you get a solution. And so to the symptoms, because everyone won't have the same symptoms, and menopause is more than hot flashes. It's more than pain. It's more than joint pain. It's more than, but I do believe there's some things that we can practice and put into place. Number one, having the open conversations. Because I mean, if we really took a poll, how many people really had these conversations at home? We probably didn't. I know we didn't, because 9 times out of 10, my mom probably didn't even know. Her mom probably didn't even know, right? They were just having a personal summer, or they were just going through the change. And so when we think of the change, the change can be anything. When you had children, that was a change, right? When you got married, that was a change. When you got divorced, that was a change. When you went to high school, that for me many years ago, that was a change, right? When you went to kindergarten, or you put your kid in kindergarten and dropped them off at daycare for the first time, that was a change. But you learned how to embrace it. You learned how to navigate, right? You learned how to adjust to that new normal in your life. And so we're not taking anything away from someone who deals with depression, but there's hope and there's resources. And so what is it that you want for you? What is it? How do you want your life? And I just honestly believe, and like you said, walking the talk, doing all of the things, right? Being an example that you can pause, but you don't have to quit.
Yeah.
And so did you grow up having the conversations, and then where you're living now in Israel, because I know in the UK, the conversations are just...
The conversations are exploding. And I will say one thing I am very proud about as being, a UK expat, is that they really are a global leader in the menopause conversation. And that really, the UK really is. In Israel, the conversation is pretty much non-existent. We have very good awareness for mental health and very good awareness for LGBTQ. Interestingly, though, menopause is very still not a conversation in the public domain. But I do follow a lot about what is going on in the UK, and it's really, really fascinating. Recently, there's been some very interesting conversations happening in the UK about women in the workplace, menopausal women in the workplace. It's interesting to see what they're getting right and what they maybe need some help with. But one of the things I wanted to say to you is that my journey into this women's health space really started when I trained as a yoga for pregnancy and birth teacher. And I trained as a yoga for pregnancy and birth teacher after birthing my 5 children. And I did that course thinking, okay, I know all about this pregnancy thing. I know all about this birthing thing. As you said, about these things because of your learned experience. But then when I trained, I realized I knew nothing about being pregnant, and I knew nothing about giving birth. And the images we have similar to menopause of giving birth and being pregnant is from TV shows and from, shows of, the reality shows of, birthing, women in the hospitals having babies, one born every minute, or whatever the TV show is in your country. But the images we have is of a woman on a bed, legs up, screaming. That's the image we have of giving birth. And when I did that training, I realized that it doesn't have to be that way. There is another way to be so connected to your body and give birth. And I'd done it, I was blessed to do it 5 times. 2 of them were cesareans, 3 of them were, vaginal births. And it was just like, all of a sudden, I had this awareness and this message that I had to share with women that it doesn't have to be that way. There is a different way to do it that actually can be more connecting, can be more healing, can be more in tune with your body. And I think, from starting off in that space and now moving into the menopause space, the message for me is the same. We have this image that is perpetuated by our society And again, in different geographical locations, menopause is perceived very differently. But in our very Western society, menopause is seen in a very specific way. It is changing. We're seeing the changes happening in the UK. We're seeing the beginning of the changes happening in the US, in Australia. Things are changing, but women have this image. And the image that we are being sold is, we can talk about, why, but it isn't the image that actually serves us as women. And I learned that, in that when I began this journey into women's health through the pregnancy and birthing space, but I think it really applies in this women's health in general. Excellent examples of things like PCOS and endometriosis that are so poorly understood by the Western conventional medical healthcare system, and menopause. But it is changing. And the more that we are having these open conversations, I will tell you that my office is my dining room table, as you can see, and my kids are walking around always listening to the conversations I'm having, listening to the conversations I'm having with my clients. And my kids know more about menopause than I think any other kids do. My 16-year-old son can tell you all about menopause. My youngest, who is a 10-year-old son, one of my friends just said, she was driving my son home in carpool, and my son just piped out, "I make so much fun of my mum about menopause," like my 10-year-old son. It should be. These conversations should be.
I love that, because I do believe my children are the same way, right? But they're positioned to be able to provide support.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times we don't even think of the men and the boys and different ones, like, how are they going to? No, they're part of your support system, even in the workplace, right? And so we don't want to exclude anyone from the conversation. We want to include everyone, because you may be the hope for someone. You may be you might literally be the human fan for someone in the workplace. You just don't know, okay?
Yeah.
You may be just a listening ear to someone. And so that support, but we have to have the conversations. And I love that I'm able to have these open conversations to rebrand the perspective of menopause. And you're absolutely right. The UK is exploded. The US is trickling, right? But it's still not a lot of talk about it in the workplace and different things. And even in the medical field that I work in, I'm always having these conversations, and I'm not surprised at how many women will come up to me like, "Oh my God, thank you so much. Oh God, okay." Or I've even had men come in there like, "Look, my wife, my girlfriend, my partner, but they want to help." So we have to be willing to receive the help, be willing to receive the education, be willing to understand that you can be empowered during this transition. Because when we really think back on our life, Jacqueline, everyone has had some hard things to overcome.
Yeah.
But if you're still here, you made it, right? When it's raining outside, what do? You grab your umbrella, raincoat, rain boots, or whatever you feel that you need. If it's a heavy rain, if it's a light rain, if it's windy and raining, right? We live in an area where we have hurricanes, right? So we already know. We're not going to ride with our windows all the way down when it's pouring down raining. So when it's cold outside, right? Okay. I've been here in the snow, so I had to get some snow boots. We know how to adjust to the environment. And I do believe that menopause is the same way. How can you embrace? How can you adjust? How can you find community? Because that was one thing for me. I felt alone initially on the journey because I didn't have anyone to talk to. I didn't have anyone to be like, "Hey, well, this is going on." So I'm happy to see that more communities are being created to find a space just to have the open conversation. And so this perimenopause journey for you, let's just, you said you're not really having any symptoms and different things. And I love from it, like.
So I will tell you that I realized a number of years ago that I was probably in perimenopause, and I have started doing a few things. And obviously, as life changes, as life gets more stressful, you really need to be in touch with yourself to be paying attention. So some of the main things that I do for myself and things that I really recommend is around, I believe there are 5 areas that really can exacerbate, are triggers for exacerbating hormonal imbalance, and are the 5 areas in which you can support your hormones and support your long-term hormonal health. The first one is stress. Obviously, stress is, as we know, is one of the biggest triggers for hormonal imbalance, and stress in all its different guises and the way that the stress hormone cortisol is going to be impacted and impact your reproductive hormones. The next one is nutrition. And under nutrition comes gut health and supplementation, and really what you eat, when you eat, how you eat, and the role of insulin in the role really of cortisol and insulin in inflammation, in hormonal chaos, in sort of all of these things. So really focusing in on what do you need to be eating to support your health in midlife. And it looks very different to what we may have been eating in our 20s and our 30s. So there's stress and nutrition, sleep, movement, and self-care. And those 5 areas really are a puzzle. And for every woman, it looks different. But it's really, we need to be looking at those 5 areas and how our hormones, not just our reproductive hormones, not just estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and FSH, but how things like cortisol, insulin, melatonin, the sleep hormone, how our feel-good hormones, how our movement is all impacted, this very intricate detailed endocrine system that may hopefully be working in balance in our 20s and our 30s. In our 20s and our 30s, we may even be really pushing it to the limit of functionability and functionality, but then comes perimenopause and estrogen starts fluctuating, progesterone starts reducing, testosterone starts fluctuating, and it has major knock-on effects to all the other hormones. So really learning how we can do, I'm very much about easy, simple, practical things that you can do that are going to support you in the best way possible. And I, am doing the best I can, but I will tell you, from my own personal experience, I have energy. I'm a busy working mom of 5 kids, teenagers and kids off to university and wherever. And I have energy. I don't feel exhausted, that slump that most women feel in the afternoons. I sleep pretty much okay. None of the hot flashes or aching pains and joint pain and all that type of thing. Libido, thank God. My husband may complain that there's too much sex going on. All those things that you would tick saying, yeah, I've got that. Yeah, I've got that. Yeah, I've got that. I am very, very blessed that I am not suffering. And I really want to share that message for women. It's not an anomaly, the women that are navigating this okay. There are women who navigate it. And yet because we are hormonal women, we're going to have peaks and troughs. We're going to have days that we wake up and we feel strong and vibrant and energized. And we're going to have days where all we want to do is hide under the covers. That's normal and natural, and that is okay. But if you can see the larger picture of, I know what to do and I'm in control, and there are some days where I need to maybe focus a little bit more in this area of self-care, or some days I need to, up my supplementation, or some days I need to really be careful what I'm eating. And yeah, some days you're going to just want to eat that tub of ice cream, and that's also okay.
I love that, because I often tell them it's a combination of things. It's not just in one particular area, but when we learn to marry all of those, it's like when I leave the house, I don't say, oh, let me grab my arm, right? Oh, let me get my foot. You got to go with me. And so when we put all of these things into harmony, and they work together. And like you said, there may be times where I have to focus a little more on this aspect. And then, okay, let me get a little more rest. And what I'm learning, listen to your body. It's talking to us all of the time because I'm still in the workforce. All of the things. I have my business. I travel for work, right? But I feel amazing, and I work like night shift. And I have coworkers, and they're like, "You don't be drinking coffee. You don't do this. Like you're energized." And I'm like, "Yeah, I slept. Like I get my sleep on. I
Yeah.
drink plenty of water. I stay hydrated. Like you said, I'm with you, Jacqueline, on the practical, simple things, right? Because
Yeah.
what can end up happening, so many people, and it's unfortunate that people that have moved into this space, right? The propaganda, all of the everything on the market, because people are
Yes.
looking for an answer. They're looking for a solution. And clearly, that answer could be a small adjustment of getting an extra hour of sleep, and it didn't cost you anything.
Yes.
That adjustment could be, okay, you had one glass of wine, don't have another one today, right? Because now you're triggered with a hot flash or whatever that may be for you.
Yeah.
Okay, small adjustment might be, okay, maybe I'm not moving enough. Right? So let me add an extra 10 minutes to my movement. Okay, perhaps I'm not stretching enough. And that's why my muscles and my pelvic floor and different things are feeling tight and a little achy. So can I take 5 minutes, 10 minutes and stretch and just quiet myself? And so I don't like that aspect of it, because then it can become a financial burden for some people, because you're
Yeah.
spending all of this money, and some people can't afford HRT and different other treatment plans. And so are
Yeah.
they just supposed
Well,
to be?
that's what we're seeing happening in the UK. I think this menopause business and the menopause products that are really flooding the UK market. I mean, I saw recently menopause chocolate. I mean, it's just like, it's ridiculous. Menopause chocolate, because it had almonds, which are really good for good healthy fats, and it was like 90% chocolate, which we know is really good for, inflammation or whatever, but it was sold as menopause chocolate in the health store. And then there's pajamas that are made from special material to prevent hot flashes. And as you said, women don't need to spend their money on things like that, but we're sold to, we're branded to, we are, we're looking for those quick fix solutions that are going to help us. And it's, if we were just able to have accessibility to good, reliable information, that was these small, simple changes that you can do. Add, vitamin D, just take a good dosage of vitamin
Jacqueline,
D every day.
look, that's why initially I was going to move from the sun, but I was just like, you know what? I'm going to soak in this sun of this vitamin D, and especially for women of color, like our vitamin D most times are, I even experienced at one point where my vitamin D was like 11, and I
Wow.
was so fatigued and I was so drained. Like I felt like I couldn't even hold my own body weight in my head. Okay, that's how weak I was. But then what was the solution? Okay, increase your vitamin D. Go outside, right? Get some sun. Go,
It's
all
so
of the,
easy.
and especially with the hours that I work. I go to work when it's dark. I typically get off when it's still dark, and then it's time for me to go to sleep, right? And so, but
Yeah.
becoming intentional with how I want my life to be. So even as I sit here with, and I've never had any hormone treatment plan from after having the hysterectomy, and that's been well over 10 years ago. I'm talking about like 13 years or so. And I feel amazing. I started paying attention to my body, tracking and trending everything, right? I have an amazing sex life, right? Like all of the things. Yes, did I have an experience with vaginal dryness, but what's the solution,
Yeah.
right?
And there are easy solutions out there.
Easy solutions, but I had to be willing to have the conversation. My husband and I had to be willing to come together to say, okay,
Yeah.
let's explore, let's see what we're going to do. Then I had to evaluate what environment am I in? Am I feeling stressed? Am I feeling, all of these things, right? A
Yeah.
combination. Because look, it may not even just be.
And also, I also think, you're a great example, because if you are working night shifts, that's going to affect your circadian rhythm. It's going to affect other things that are going on in your body that you need to be aware of. And also, I think one of the things that the UK is doing very poorly is looking at different menopause experience for different women ethnicities. And I think women of color have a particular experience. Women of certain religions have different experiences. There are different menopause experiences because of the cultural language, the ethnic, conversations that are going on. And I think that is something that is not being done well in the UK. And I think that, and I think that the fact that you are coming at, this menopause conversation, firstly, having being put into early menopause for medical reasons, and as a woman of color, I think your voice is so important. I'm a Jewish woman, and I work a lot with religious women, and we have a lot of and women who are, let's say, very committed to their church and their community. We have other layers of expectations, cultural expectations, that may impact the way that this whole thing about a woman who is expected to be really involved in her community, who is expected to, do a lot of charity or community work. And all of a sudden you turn around and you're in menopause and you're like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it. And so there are so many layers of cultural language and narrative that can impact us. And we need to be having those conversations, not just about the symptoms, but about a woman's experience in midlife. And how does menopause impact that?
I love that because your upbringing, your culture, it's your mindset behind things. I met some women in New Mexico, Native Americans, and they was like, thank you.
Yeah.
Because a couple of them even were crying, right? But we create this safe space for that, because she was like, we're not even really allowed to talk about these things. So to come and be able to get some education and feel seen and feel heard.
Yeah. Well, they say that in Asia, they say they don't have a word for menopause. And they say, the narrative goes that in Asian countries, they don't have a word for menopause because women navigate. It's not like an issue. It's not this burden that is placed on women. Women navigate it, and then they transition to being this older, respected woman. And so it's a totally culturally different experience. You think about African tribal women, where the older, wiser woman is like this, sort of revered woman who everyone comes to for their blessings and for the words of wisdom and for, recognition and whatever. And it's in our Western, dare I say, patriarchal culture where women have a very different cultural language related to menopause. So It's complicated. It's complicated.
It is, but I love that conversations with women such as yourself give a broader perspective, because I particularly don't care. I might do some content on some symptoms, but I don't particularly like to come from the aspect of symptoms, because I don't know what someone's symptoms, you don't even know down the road, even as postmenopausal, what other symptoms or things that may come up. So excuse me, we can have the conversations. It's like being pregnant, right? And you've done it 5 times, I've done it 3. Okay, so we can know about pregnancy, but I did not know exactly how my pregnancy was going to. I did not know that I would be in and out of the hospital. I did not know that I would be put on bed rest for the remainder. I did not know that one of my children would have the umbilical cord wrapped around their neck. I did not know that I would develop preeclampsia, right? Even though you've read things, you saw the TV shows and all of these things about pregnancy,
Yeah.
I did not know. And afterwards, you never know. I've heard women say, I didn't think that it would be me to deal
Yes.
with postpartum depression. I didn't think
Yes.
it would be me that would lose a baby. I didn't think it
Yeah.
would be me that would have multiple miscarriages, right?
Yeah.
So then it's like we know the journey, but we don't know all of the intricate details of how it may affect us. And I do believe menopause is the same way, that yes,
Yes.
these are some symptoms that someone could potentially have, but clearly there's a solution for the symptoms. And when we're more empowered individually, then we can empower our communities, then we can empower other people around us while we're empowering even our younger children so that they can support. And so, Jacqueline, we could just go on. We'll definitely have, like, I feel like we can do a live conversation, LinkedIn or something. Look, we are connected forever. Okay. We are
Definitely.
forever. Especially in this space, because I know my lane, you all, and hormones and HRT and all that's not my lane. But we find the experts to bring you right information to get those wheels in your head turning. Jacqueline provided us some questions that you can add, so make sure that you have your pen and paper out so that when you go to the doctor, you're not just sitting there listening to them, but you're having an informed conversation where you can go back, talk to your partner, talk to your family, figure out what's going to be best for you based upon whether it's your culture, based upon your own family medical history, because a lot of us don't even know that. And then based upon what does your medical history look like, so that, because like you said earlier, Jacqueline, they'll be quick to write a prescription and you don't really even know anything. Like, can we do a little data? Can we get a little research on my body first and then you give me that one prescription, and then, okay, that dosage is too high. So now I have to pay for another prescription, and I'm not a lab rat. Okay. I'm not a lab rat. We're not going to do trial and error because it's costly. It's mental, it's emotional, it's all of the things. But one last parting word of encouragement that you would give anyone on this journey or who's supporting someone on the journey, what's some advice?
Okay, so I'm really happy you asked this to me, because this is how I really want to end off. So there is a biological definition of menopause, and that is, if you've gone through natural menopause, it is 12 period-free months. After 12 period-free months, you can pop the champagne, you're in menopause. But I actually think there's a deeper definition, maybe a more emotional or spiritual definition. And for me, menopause is the process of becoming your true, authentic self. It is a journey that every woman needs to navigate. And it doesn't matter whether you're navigating it with symptoms, without symptoms. It is a journey that every single woman goes on, whether you have had biological children or not had biological children, whatever has happened in your life, every woman will go through some type of menopause. And if we change that narrative and change that paradigm, that menopause is this journey of becoming your true, authentic self, because in postmenopause, that is where all the fun happens. That is where everything changes. And so to think about it in a slightly more deeper, emotionally spiritual way, that's maybe a message that I want women to take away from this.
I love that, because I often say that it's a spiritual awakening that takes place.
Yes.
And so in my case, though I will never have children again, right? I feel like I'm always birthing.
Yes.
Because it is it's a new beginning. It's a new opportunity to know me better. It's a new opportunity to expose my mind and stretch myself just to think bigger. It's a new opportunity to just say, you know what? This is my life. I love my life. I love teaching and I love being here and I just love who I am. That even if your journey is, hey, you had a hysterectomy, you can still birth. And so what are you birthing? You're birthing those dreams, you're birthing those goals, because some of us are becoming more closer and closer to being empty nesters, right? So you're reinventing and you're getting back to who am I? What is it that I love? And creating those boundaries to say no, creating those boundaries to ask for what it is that you need, right? It's like a newborn baby. They don't need the Similac anymore at 5 years old, okay? So they've transitioned, and so we have to feed our minds differently. We have to feed and nourish our bodies differently. And then we're having some different conversations. And so you're never going to find me in a depressing conversation about menopause, because I'm not depressed. There is not a death sentence. It's not the end of life. But if you look at it with a spiritual awakening and with a new perspective, together, all of us bringing our expertise and experiences to the table can rebrand the face of menopause. And we're not just talking about women of color. We're talking about all women together. Jacqueline said something powerful, you all. Every woman will have her journey, but you get to determine. I want you to point to yourself. You get to determine how you want this journey to play out. You get to determine if you're going to birth triplets, sextuplets, octuplets. You get to determine how you want to maneuver in this life. And so, Jacqueline, I want to say thank you for joining us for Menopause March Madness. You all stay tuned. All of these episodes will be dropping in honor of Women's History Month, and we are here making history, right? We're making history, we're making changes, we're being trailblazers in having these conversations to educate, encourage, and empower you on your journey. You've already done some hard things, right? And this journey, it doesn't have to be hard. We just have to navigate it, and I want you to know you're not navigating it alone. So, Jacqueline, before we leave, let everyone know how they can connect with you.
Yes, so you can find me a lot across the internet at Jacqueline Rose Women's Health. And I invite everyone to join me at my free Facebook group, which is the Menopause Sisterhood. And that really is the place where I share a lot of my content, trainings, and that sisterhood element of not feeling alone, not feeling like you're navigating this by yourself. So definitely join me at the Menopause Sisterhood. And also, I'm happy to share a freebie that I have with your audience, which is preparing for your doctor's appointment. It is a checklist of all the different things and information that you need pre the appointment, during the appointment, and after the appointment. So that's a freebie that I'm happy to share with your audience to get ready and prepared for your doctor's appointment so you can ask the questions that need to be asked.
Look at that, you all. You're getting something free. So yes, be sure. I will be sure that you all get that information. And look, I might end up dropping that. If you send that to me, I might end up sharing that even before this episode, because that is one thing that people are, what do I ask? What do I say? So she's giving you a freebie. So look, that is exciting. So you all make sure that you connect with Jacqueline Rose Women's Health. This is an important conversation, and we're not stopping. We're going one business at a time, one woman at a time, one community at a time to get this information out. So until the next time, remember that you can pause, but you cannot quit.